Hello, everyone. How are you? I hope you all are doing good in the light of events. So the topic of my presentation is blockchain solutions with cybersecurity. Uh, you must be wondering why I choose this topic. Actually, I feel that there is a need like this cybersecurity topic with blockchain doesn't come up often in the conferences or even in the panel discussions, and people are not caring about security that much. And cybersecurity is usually considered as an afterthought in many organizations. And just once we have or experience some attack, then enterprises think of security. So I put it I need to discuss this topic. So I felt the need of it. So let's briefly go to the agenda. So we'll be covering blockchain vulnerabilities and security basics. Like we need to understand that concept first, right? Then we'll talk about that why does it matter, why cybersecurity matter to us, or what it can cause, what sort of damage it can cause. Then we'll be questioning like whether blockchain is really decentralized or it comprise of some components which are centralized also, then we'll be discussing about, because in order to really understand the concept, you need to understand the data flow and do some sort of threat modeling, which seems somewhat technical to you, but it's not actually. Then we'll be talking about, like, from the threat modeling point of view, how we can distribute blockchain into different security domains. We'll be highlighting that also. And then to end up, we'll be discussing some sort of risk management and secure deployment process. And in the end, I'll be actually leaving you with some recommendations that will help you in mitigating risk, and especially avoid some hacks. Okay. Moving on, just to introduce myself, my name is Taha Sajid. I'm a technical director in Huawei. Uh, I'm responsible for core networks, 5G solutions, cloud, as well as cybersecurity. And also, I'm a chief blockchain consultant with a Saudi blockchain company, which is Limar Global Tech. It's a Hyperledger member in Saudi Arabia. And also, I'm representing different consultancies companies as their advisor, like Hashcash Consultants from USA, Prudential Solutions from Pakistan. And also I'm a blockchain certified instructor and solution architect from Blockchain Training Alliance, which is a USA based company. So that's a brief intro about me. Okay. So moving on, let's discuss about the fundamentals about like the main concepts behind cybersecurity in blockchain. So we all know, like, when we talk about a blockchain solution, it's not a standalone solution. Once you need to build a blockchain solution, it's usually comprised of a different system, different components, okay, like business process or some sort of things in which we need to build an infrastructure for that. So that's why we say that once we talk about blockchain, we need to understand from the security standpoint that it comprises of different components. Okay. And then there is often a debate, which is a polarized debate concerning security, like, whether it is GDPR compliant or not. And this also has resulted in its adoption. A lot of European companies see, like, it's saving personal information, and which is not being complying with GDPR. And other parties are thinking like blockchain is unhackable. It has a fundamentals of cryptography. So once we're talking about blockchain, we thought of it's a very secure solution. So but actually the answer lies in the middle somewhere, like, to be able to have a GDPR compliant, you need to follow certain steps. Like, you don't have to store, or if you want to store some information, it should be in the form of encryption, or you should not be storing personal health information or PIA information in blockchain. You can store it like an offline database, right? And then also you need to see, like, in which jurisdiction you are operating in order to comply with GDPR, whether GDPR applies to me or not. So there are different things in which, once you have a clear understanding about the concept, then you will be able to defend yourself and your solution as well. Okay, so moving on, let's discuss about the blockchain vulnerabilities and security basics. So we all know, like, security as a process, we say, like, it's not a silver bullet, something like if I tell you, like, to follow this 1 2 3 steps, your system will be secure. It's an ongoing effort. It depends, and it's a constant cat and mouse fight going on between the attackers and the security professional to protect the system. So it's an ongoing effort. Then we have heard about the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So what is confidentiality? Because in order to understand cybersecurity, you need to have the three concepts in mind. So let's say that if I'm sending 5 Bitcoins or any message from A to B, so my message should only reach to that person B. No people in the middle or somewhere else can hijack that message or do some sort of wrong thing with this message, so that's what confidentiality is. Now when it comes to integrity means that if I'm sending something to the people or to the person B, he should receive an exact copy of that message. That message should not be modified or altered. So that's why how we prevent integrity or how we save integrity. So blockchain, as we know, that it's immutable. So this integrity part is somewhat covered. Okay, but confidentiality part, I'm not sure, because in public we don't see or we don't restrict anyone to join the network. However, in the private blockchain solutions, there is, we can know somebody who is joining in a network. And then the availability part comes, like if I'm saying, like if I'm having 6 nodes in my system, so availability means like all those 6 nodes are available 24/7, and there is no some sort of denial of service, or that machine is on, and I can use that machine. So that's where the availability part comes. So when it comes to blockchain, uh, it depends upon what sort of priority you need to give in to all of this CIA, whether confidentiality means to you, or whether you want to secure all the nodes. So it depends on the configuration of the network. And then there's defense in depth concept, like okay, there is always a saying like, no attack can be, or no solution or system, we can cover 100% from the attacks. Okay, so 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 in order to mitigate this, we need to have multiple layers of security. Let's say if I am having firewall, I'm having good access control mechanism, then I'm having the IDS mechanism and some sort of monitoring also I'm doing. So I'm having defense in depth, so that if one attacker goes into the network, he should have some time in order to reach his target, and I can catch him in the middle. So that's what defense in depth means. Then coming on to simple security, it's a concept in which we need to make sure that our design is as simple as possible and as transparent as possible. So because if the harder design I'll make, it will be harder for me to defend that also. It can increase attack vectors also. So coming to the blockchain and nuisances or the vulnerability things, it comes with decentralization thing, because security as a concept, we build security a culture wise, and also we have some sort of governance model in the security. But with decentralization, we cannot build a governance policy, or we cannot control it, like, right? So this is one of the drawbacks. Then we have consensus mechanism. We have different consensus mechanism for different blockchain, but they also vary. Like we experience, like there are 51% of the attack that happens in which it is, or if there is some vulnerability in the attack in the code itself, so it can lead to some sort of the mishap. And then we have seen like smart contracts, endpoint security, and cryptographic keys. With smart contracts, like once you are building a code or writing a code, you should perform stress testing, you should perform. So any attacker can, if it can access to the system, it can go into the smart contract and manipulate the code, which can result in theft and in some other changes as well. And then with endpoint, with blockchain, normally we have given more control to the developers and to the node itself. So we need to protect that endpoint, in which we make sure that the systems are patched and the systems are not carrying any defects, so that the attacker cannot exploit them. And then we have cryptographic keys. We make sure that this is also a point of vulnerability, in which we know that private and public keys are very important for us, and especially need to take care of the private keys. Okay, so we should be able to make sure that how we are generating the keys, how we are using it, and how we are storing the keys. So we have to keep all the bases covered in order, if we need to have a secure blockchain system. Okay, so moving on, let's discuss about like, why does it matter? In 2018, this which I'm showing you, 1064176, it's $1 billion figure, which has been lost only in 2018. So you can well imagine the impact of the hacks that has been happened. We experienced the attacks like phishing and social engineering. So any one of you know what phishing is? Okay, so what phishing is? Phishing is an email or a bug or something like a fake generated email in which there is a link, and they'll ask you to click on the link, and it can redirect you to some page, and once you click on the link, there you go, your system is infected. And then, or else you will be go to a credential link in which if you put your credentials, they can capture all your credentials, because this is all fake. Okay. And the social engineering attacks happen once anybody see your private key, or when anybody from your surroundings ask you to tell your private key, and they can do some wrong functions with that thing. So that's what social engineering is. And then we have software flaws. We have software flaws related to the smart contract flaws, or the coding flaws that we have in the blockchain system, which can also lead to very much a stealing of the money. And then we have DNS hijack, we have other hacking, 51% of the attack, and then we have exchange hack. So this all attacks are being divided into some different categories depending on the nature of the attack. So I'll need to mention you about this exchange attack or exchange hack that happened with Binance. We all know that Binance is a very popular cryptocurrency exchange. And what happens is that there is some attackers use the phishing attack in order to steal the credentials of some users in 2018. And what happens after that, they actually build API keys on that users, and from that API keys, they try to put a bidding order in some other exchange, of some higher bidding orders to buy the Bitcoin. Okay. So what happens once they place those so many big orders from those accounts, the price goes high. Okay. And they have some pre-funded accounts in the Binance exchange. So once the price goes high, they thought of withdrawing from those accounts, and luckily Binance catch this thing due to their effective risk management thing, and they were not being able to steal that money, or they actually steal some part of the money, right? So this is how the exchange hacks can happen. So you have to be well aware if you are putting your cryptocurrency in your exchange, or if you're putting, even you should ask them that what sort of wallet they are using. Are they using hot wallet, like which is being connected to the internet, or they are using the cold wallet, which we say like an offline storage, which is not connected to the internet, and what sort of insurance mechanism they should be having. And so you have to ask a lot of things, because in cybersecurity we say due care and due diligence, so that's, you need to take care, like you don't have to rely on the exchange or the third party. You need to take care of your own belongings, and you need to have your own research once you are doing some business with that exchange. Okay, so moving on. So what are the different form of cyber attacks that we're having? We can divide the numerous attacks into some different categories. Like we can have blockchain splitting, we can have P2P systems, and we can also have blockchain applications. So the number of attacks can vary from like folks in which we experience like there are some vulnerability issues in the coding, and it needs to be the chain splitted, which can result in some revenue loss. And there is some DNS hijacks which happen with P2P system. There is some distributed denial of system attack, in which once the attacker can hack one node, it can launch a distributed denial of attack in which all the nodes can be affected. And then when it comes to blockchain application, so normally we have seen smart contracts denial of service attack, in which there is a vulnerability in the code, and from the time of issuing a transaction or sending a request for a transaction till the time it actually loaded on the blockchain, it usually have some sort of delay or time. Let's say blockchain or Bitcoin take 10 minutes to mine a block. Okay, with Ethereum it's 15 to 16 seconds. However, if the attacker can manipulate the code in between, it can result in double spending. It can cause double spending, in which although I'm paying money to somebody, but that money is not being detected from my account. So that's how this vulnerability can cause all of this attack, like green currency overflow, replay attack. So all this some sort of form of the smart contract vulnerabilities. Then there is one term over here which is cryptojacking. Okay, so what do you think what cryptojacking is? This is a new term which we have seen. So with cryptojacking, what we mean is that if your computer is compromised, okay, so this attacker or an attacker can use your computer or use your node and launch any attack, or put a malware, which is a worm or a logic bomb in your node, and upon some triggers, those logic bombs can be triggered, or can be activated. So this is how what what cryptojacking is, and it can result in revenue loss and delay or theft as well. So there are numerous attacks which we can see, and their forms that which can result in which activities. Okay, so moving on. So what do you think? We discussed initially about the centralized or a decentralized nature of blockchain. So what do you think what blockchain is? We all know that it's decentralized. However, it comprises of, yeah, it comprises of a lot of sub devices when it comes to building and and an infrastructure or connecting with third party. So let's say if you are using an authentication service from chain id or for a multi-signature purpose, that thing is a centralized node. Okay, and or even if we are building a decentralized application, that application needs to be built by something like a company like Golem or Agar or Argon. Once they are doing this decentralized application, this is a centralized system. And then if we need to embed or integrate a digital wallet, so we have seen, we can see that all of these components are centralized. Okay, so when it comes to decentralization, blockchain itself, like the chain of blocks, are distributed and decentralized. However, the components are centralized. Okay, so also if we go further, we see that if we are using key storage or network devices like routers, switch, DNS, VPN, so all these devices are centralized devices. So we need to make sure that we are paying those components same attention as what we are giving to a centralized security architecture in order to secure our nodes. Okay, so let's understand about the data flow in blockchain. Like in normal, in a public blockchain, let's say, how this or how we can see the nodes itself. So in public blockchain, the only way in which we can access the blockchain network is three ways: uh, by buying something from the exchange, which uses the cold hot storage. This part, which I'm showing you over here, is an application part, or we can say a third party application part. Okay, and then you can directly access with a web wallet using a multi authentication purpose or multi authentication system, in which we can transmit something to the blockchain. And then also we can interact with blockchain using the dApps. Okay, which can be front layer of, if we are talking about a blockchain stack, it can be a front layer of a blockchain system. So this is how we are interacting with blockchain here. If you notice that if you are authentic, if you can get inside this network by authentication, okay, then you can have an access of all those systems. And blockchain with its immutability, it's not there. So all this part, when it comes to application, the web service clients or the dApps part, can be vulnerable to some attacks if the authentication part is compromised. So this is when it comes to talking about public blockchain. However, if you're talking about a private blockchain, which is a permission blockchain, we can somehow or build the network as per what we want. So we can have a different architecture in that front also. Okay, so just moving on about a centralized, just to compare the centralized system with decentralized blockchain system. We know that from a centralized system, in order, if we need to actually access the system, uh, the attacker has to go through a public DMZ, which is like, if I am allowing a web application to access the public nature, or to access the public part, I need to put my web server in the public DMZ, okay, which is a decentralized military zone. Then the attacker has to go through firewalls or IDS or some sort of monitoring device in order to reach the target. Okay, however, when it comes to the blockchain part, the attacker only has to bypass or can be a node in that ecosystem. Okay, and he can have an access to all those things. So in order to actually mitigate the attacks, you need to also think blockchain decentralized system as from the standpoint of saving the centralized system. So you should be having same sort of diligence as what you are having with the centralized system. Okay, so that's, yeah. So so this threat modeling was, so once we can identify, or once we can understand the architect, how the network is built, we can have a systematic approach to dealing with the attacks. With threat modeling, if I can put all the attacks, like we can see, look like there are 6 attacks, which can happen with my blockchain system, starting with a spoofing attack, like the node or the authentication, the person who is doing the authentication can be or can be a victim of spoofing attack. So with spoofing, what I mean by spoofing actually, see, if somebody can, attacker can steal your credentials and falsify and steal your identity and become a node itself, and then it can send an email request to somebody, so you will thought that it's an actual person. how However, the node has been compromised, so that's what spoofing attack is. And then it can, once it can be a victim of spoofing attack, it can result in data disclosure or leak some info or private information of the system. And then also it can tamper the data, and once the data can be tampered, then the system can be corrupted or the data can be compromised. It can steal your private keys, and it can also result in denial of service attack from the third party point of view, in which the systems which are a third party system, like the exchange or the cold or the hot wallet, the storage will not be able to function properly. So you see that all of these attacks are not coming or are beyond blockchain. So this blockchain, what we are seeing over here, is over here, so this is not from here. So all this attack can be done if the authentication can be compromised. So it's very important, if you are uh, building a public blockchain, or let's say Ethereum or Bitcoin, or let's say a private blockchain, the authentication part is very important. And also, like, you have to have a good access control mechanism. You should be having good passwords to protect. You should be having any biometric mechanism in order to have some good or solid authentication and solid KYC procedures to actually log in or to go with this. And once you're having those mechanisms, then those front end devices which you are having in your applications or on your dev, which is the nodes, the terminals, needs to be protected with antivirus softwares, and all the patches vulnerabilities needs to be fixed, because if the signatures are not there in the antivirus, the virus or any malware can affect your system, which is not being discovered yet. So that's how those things happen. And there is one element called non-repudiation over here. If you see this one, so non-repudiation is a means by which the attacker cannot be able to or can hide his identity, and you cannot be able to track him, so that once he can access to the system, he can manipulate the code in a way that the non-repudiation can be neutralized, so this is all attacks can happen. So once we can do the threat modeling of an architecture, we can be able to identify all those attacks. So moving on, if we are building this or putting all these attacks into one place, we can see that all these attacks can cause identity theft, can make the component disabled, resulting in the DOS attack, and then we can have secret channel broken. We can have numerous results, which I'm showing you over here, and also more than that. So you have to make sure that you will be covering all of these things, and you have to do your due diligence if you need to protect your network from all of these attacks. Okay, so moving on. So once we have done the threat modeling, we can easily distribute the blockchain security domains into 4 domains, which is a platform, which is blockchain itself. And for platform, we can make sure to, in order to have a good platform, we should make sure that the synchronization or the communication or redundancy between the blockchain nodes is well established. Okay, if we need to have a good platform. Okay, and any attack or anything can be easily monitored also, and then when it comes to a front end server application, front end application, we can easily identify, because there is exchange. So in the exchange, once you need to establish an exchange, you need to have a bank account which goes through a KYC procedure. So once you need to integrate with any exchange, you need to make sure that whether the attacks listed in the OWASP organization, which shows the top 10 attacks which are being present globally, you can well assure that whether they are protecting or not. You can ask them, and you can also ask them that if they are having a hot wallet or cold wallet in once they are storing their funds, so they can make sure, and you can have some sort of coding reviews, and you can ask that if they have their code audits from third party and what sort of mechanism that they have done. And then it comes to the distribution application part. You can know that if for any DApp, it can result in many attack like cross-site forgery or cross-site scripting attack, in which you can redirect it to a site and the attacker can steal your credentials. So you have to make sure that the distributed application part is also being covered and the smart contract is well reviewed and audited. And then it is always an endpoint security in which you are protecting your private keys, public keys. So public keys is already being shown everywhere, but you need to protect your private keys, and also you have to make sure that your systems are well up to date, maintained, and you are having enough security with your end, and you're also training the users, because once you are train the user, then the users, or then the node users will be able to understand the importance of security and what harm that they can cause to them. So that's how you can divide blockchain into different security domains. So moving on, let's compare the phases of attack when it comes to the centralized platform and the blockchain platform. So normally the attacks happen in the reconnaissance. Yeah. Once we need to gather the information about the system secretly. With blockchain, if you're talking about public blockchain, it's open source, so the information is already available to you. However, when it comes to private blockchain, you don't have such access. Okay, then comes the scanning part, in which the nodes are scanned for some vulnerabilities, like the ports are open or not, whether that IP is pingable or not, or what sort of things that I can exploit. Uh, so with blockchain, as a public blockchain, the attacker has information about those things. Okay, so that's also the no need to, from the attacker point of view, there's no need to protect that information. Okay, then once you gain the access to the system, then you will do the attack. So then the third phase is the gaining of the access. Then you have to do the maintenance and access, then you have to do the covering attack. Let's okay, just hold on for 1 minute. Yeah, so we were talking about like there are different phases of attack, in which the only thing in which we need to take care with public blockchain is the authentication part, in which once the attacker can gain the access, then it can cause damage. So this part is vulnerable. And then the maintenance access, that once you are getting the access, how well you are maintaining the access, that it's not necessary that you will be launching the attack on the same time. You can delay your attack as well. So with the public blockchain, once the attacker, let's say, compromise like 51% of the nodes when it comes to public blockchain, then it can compromise the node itself. And when it comes to the private blockchain methodology, attack methodology, he can also delay the strategy. Like if the noders or the validators who are part of that private blockchain system is usually not so, or are reliable actually, so if they are also the part of the attack, they can do that, or they can do unlimited damage. So for the covering also attack, for the covering track, they're trying to cover to avoid detection. This part is somewhat in blockchain, we use anonymity or or, or pseudo anonymity. So that part is somewhat been okay, or been somewhat covered when it comes to public blockchain, because we are not disclosing the identity. So all you need to understand is that for both centralized or private or public blockchain, you need to understand different phases of the attack and see that where the controls I can put in all of those phases if we need to have a good secure system. Okay, so moving on, so let's discuss the top blockchain security risk. So if we're talking about the number of attacks specific to blockchain, the first thing we need to know is that thing called decentralized, that we are usually using the term with blockchain. So we decentralize, there is a thing like, if we are using blockchain, avoid or try to avoid storing personal information like the PII, personal identifiable information, and also the personal health information in blockchain, or any confidential information which can lead to, if the attacker can attack the system, can steal that information and actually demand some heavy money from you. So you need to make sure that you're not selling that information if you're using centralized blockchain. Okay, and then also there is sort of governance issue when it comes to decentralized blockchain or with this decentralized nature. So you need to make sure that even if you're using the decentralized blockchain, you need to have some sort of security governance in which if you are using, let's say, Ethereum or you are using Ethereum, you need to make sure that what sort of things that you can govern in which is in your hand. Okay, and then for confidentiality, uh, it's also a risk in which if we are using public blockchains, we are not we are having integrity, but we are not having the confidentiality mechanism. However, if you're using the private blockchain, we can use some certificate authority or make some good KYC procedures in order to have the good confidentiality mechanisms, as because once this is compromised, the attackers can do multiple damages. And then we have endpoints like the users or the terminals needs to be patched, needs to be making sure that they should understand the security realm, and they should have some sort of or they should have some sort of IDS things or within their systems, or anti-malwares are updated, and all of the things they should be aware about, non or not being a victim of phishing attack, or once they are putting a URL in their or in their browser, they need to make sure that they are being directed to a right or to a correct site. So that's the need to identify actually this thing very important. So then we have availability. Some blockchain platforms actually making sure that the systems or the nodes are available. Okay, so normally, when it comes to private blockchain, if one node is compromised, let's say a bank. Okay, normally banking is a sector in which we are normally using permission private blockchain. So with banking sector, if we are having nodes like different sort of departments for this, so this thing is very important that we need to make sure that there is no one if there is any distribution of or denial of service attack happen to compromise availability, that node should be isolated from internet, or that should be separated. And then the nodes which are actually part of that system, so need to make sure that the nodes are properly authenticated and we are having enough mechanisms. So here we are having some, so there are different things which can relate to blockchain security risk. So with smart contracts, as I told you before, that we need to have proper auditing from third party, we need to do regression testing, we have to write the right with while building the code, we need to write the test of that code also, so in order to make sure that, so and once we are and normally once we're using a complete SDLC cycle, software development life cycle, we are covering this in the testing part, and also there is accreditation or acceptance part that happens before deploying blockchain. So this is part needs to be covered. But if you are outsourcing your system or outsourcing any to any blockchain company, you need to make sure that they are having enough coding or auditing mechanism in their code in order to protect the blockchain network. So you need to be aware of this also. So moving on, let's put something or put some highlight into blockchain cybersecurity risk management. Okay, so so in order to start, actually we have discussed like so many times, like you cannot protect the system 100%. So you have to so in order to have a good mitigation strategy, you need to follow risk management in all the life cycle, in during the whole life cycle of a project, starting with defining, excuse me, so starting with defining security objective, what sort of, from the CIA tried, what sort of things you need to protect. Okay, what sort of risk management methodology you need to adapt, or what sort of project management cycle, to whether you're using agile thing or not, because normally in the software development things we are using the agile software methodology, which is more secure. So you need to set your security objectives upfront, that what sort of, okay, let's say what sort of disaster recovery plan you will be using. So so you need to make sure that what is your objective, and these objectives needs to be aligned with your vision or of the goal of the company. Okay, then you have to perform a threat assessment, that whether the threat is a threat from the government point of view or from the hacktivist, or what is the intention of that threat. Is that threat, the intention is to make sure that whether I'm complying the regulations, or whether to steal my confidentiality or some product information. So this is also the good step. And then perform vulnerability assessment, in which do penetration testing to exploit the vulnerability of your system. Like before you go live, You need to make sure that you hire a bug bounty or a ethical hacker which can tell you that uh, what sort of vulnerability your system having. It's good to have this sort of actually audits to actually, it will tell you that where your system stands actually, so this is a very good step. And then define risk probabilities, that whether the risk what I'm identifying in vulnerability assessment is actually a threat for me or not. Because if an attack is high impact, however it has not been occurring, or it is occurring very few times, so that's, we can put it in the low category. And the attack which is low or a medium impact but which can happen regularly can be term or can be put under high category. So that's how we can do the risk probabilities. Then once you have identified the risk, you have done the probability mechanism, listed the risk high, low, medium, then you have to see that what sort of thing that you need to do with each risk. When it comes to blockchain, it's like mitigating, like if you need to put an access control, like if you are having an exchange or a system of supply chain network, so you need to make sure that if you are so once you have identify the risk, you can put the controls in order to protect. Let's say that if you want to have a good endpoint security, you should install an IDS coming into your network, okay, or a firewall which can happen, or an IPS. So in this way you can mitigate the attack in your private blockchain system, okay. Or as well, if the attack or if the control is so expensive, or you cannot, even if you are putting the control, you cannot defend it, or nothing will happen, then you need to accept the risk, that it's okay that I'm accepting the risk. Because if the risk is low, then you can accept it, it's okay. Then or else you need to rework the design of the system. Yani when it comes to blockchain, like say if your thing, like a public blockchain will not be suitable for you, or you need to change the consensus mechanism, you should rework the system in order to avoid the risk completely. Then or let's say that if you are having a P2P system in which, or P2P lending system, so what you can do in order to transfer the risk, you can have some sort of insurance, so that you can make sure that the risk that you that that if the risk can actually exploit your system, you can be only uh, halfly impacted with this, so that's how you can transfer the risk. Okay, so coming to the last I know that you must be very tired, or it's too much technical for you, but uh, it's a good learning process, because this is a very important thing that we need to take care of. Okay, so how we can put or make the blockchain deployment process securely, or what's a good way? So the first step, that acquire blockchain expertise. So if you are don't having, or if you're not having a cybersecurity expert in your team, hire one and make him train on blockchain, because it's easier to train him on blockchain than to train a blockchain guy with cybersecurity expertise. So that's one thing that your CISO needs to take care of, which is a chief information security officer. And then you should define security goals, put the standards, what sort of thing you need to secure. Is it confidentiality, is it integrity, or is it availability, or what? So there are some organizations which are having some sort of government organizations in which they need to have more confidential system. Okay, so it depends on your security goals. Then you need to configure the blockchain. You need to have some sort of analysis that to fulfill your goals, should I use a private blockchain system or public blockchain? And if I'm using private blockchain, should I use Hyperledger R3, which has best security control, which is satisfying my goals? So that's how you can configure the blockchain. And then you have to perform the risk assessment, as was what we have tell you in the previous slide. You need to list down all the risks. Let's say that if I'm using a private blockchain, and if my administrator, which is a node validator, he can be able to compromise, or he can leave my organization, or his private key is stolen. What will happen in this case? Let's say if the confidential information is being leaked, what is, or how much the monetary value is associated with that information? So we have to perform quantitative as well as qualitative analysis in this risk management in your blockchain platform. Then define security controls, what sort of, you have to have good IAM mechanism, identity access management, or you have to have a good IDS system, or you have to have a certified authority to endorse or to allow your node owners to come into a network which is decentralized, so you can have a redundancy with that. So you can have multiple security controls in your blockchain layer. And then you should have a design security governance. This is also very important, in which you have to put the business continuity plan in your blockchain network. Also, if you can have a disaster recovery plan, like, once my blockchain is compromised, how will I be able to make my system up, and what is the redundant side of my design. So this is also very important step. And then you have develop securely. Actually, a lot of people don't complete the SDLC cycle, from initiation to the system designing process to the acceptance, all the way to the monitoring security. So if we are following all the steps, or we can, or once we are having the acceptance test also, we can show that we can have multiple developers or the quality assurance team who are verifying the code. We are having different iterations, and once we are completing that iteration, we are having some sort of lesson learned, and then we are improving the system, or improving within each iteration of this life cycle, in this life cycle. So this is, once we are following all the standards, then we will be able to build a good code. Then you have to have monitor and audited security. Then you should have SOC teams to monitor your blockchain platforms with alarm monitoring system. So this is how you can build a good secure process. Okay, so just to close off, so what are the recommendations that I need to give you for the phishing and social engineering attack? Never tell anyone your private key or your login credentials. Don't click on suspicious links. Always try URL directly into your address bar. Don't use the saved logins. And once you are actually putting the login, try to see that if there is you are putting actual, maybe there is some small dot above your letters, which can be a part of the phishing attack. So you have to be aware of that. Don't and for your To store your private keys, always use a hardware wallet or a cold wallet which is not connected to the internet. And also use strong passwords in your wallets, or and if you are using an exchange, try to put very small money into your exchange wallet, and once you're done with that trade, you can put it back, or retrieve back the amount in your wallet. And then there is crypto jacking, in which how you can be safe with crypto jacking. If your CPU utilization goes high, you should be knowing that there's something wrong within your machine. So, and there is some things which is not normal in your system, so you should think of, like, there is some malware in my machine. So you need to make sure that the antivirus you are installing is up to date and is having the latest signature. So that's how you can prevent crypto jacking. And then there is always exchange hacks that has happened. So you need to have your due care and due diligence. So as I know that there are some exchange which are vulnerable, but try to see the ratings of the exchange. Try to see what sort of insurance mechanism that they are having, what sort of security mechanism that they're having, so that in order to make sure that you are going for the right exchange. Then there are software flaws, wallet dApps. So there are different things. Once you are developing a smart contract or a chain code with private blockchain, you should make sure that the SQL injection attacks, the XML, the cross-site scripting, all the software related attacks are being well protected, and there are mitigation steps for each of the attacks, because even if the attackers are exploiting it, they cannot cause much damage if you are being able to protect all those attacks. So yeah, that's, I think, about it. If you want, because I cannot, because this topic, cybersecurity, is a very huge one, and I try to cover most of the important things in my presentation, but it's not possible for me to cover all of this topics in this short time. So I hope that you have enjoyed my presentation. I thank Reimagine 2020 to giving me opportunity to present this important topic. So you can have, if you have any questions around this space, cybersecurity, blockchain, or anything in which we want to explore more things, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. Thank you very much, and take a good care of yourself and your loved ones. Thank you.